Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Your Soul Wisdom. Today, we are joined by the lovely Perri Chase. And Perri, I just need to get right into it. And I need to walk through how we got to this very moment.
Okay.
So I was in a soul contract training, and there was somebody in there, and her and I were chatting offline, and we were going over some of the energies in the chart. Now, you've done a soul contract reading, so you kind of understand how that goes, right? And she was asking me about the 3 frequency, and I was explaining to her the energetic signature of that Gemel, right? Of that 3 energy. And I wanted to get into that sexiness piece because that sensuality and sexuality is really important part of this frequency. But most people are really shy to talk, or not shy, or reserved to talk about anything that's sex related or any of that. So I always tread lightly when I don't know the person. And, I said to her, the intimacy part is not just about climax. It is about like, what are you being filled with in that moment? It's about creation. It's all this stuff. So I start saying to her, in moments when you are, and she goes, masturbating. And I was like, okay, so clearly we can talk about this. And I go, yeah. And she goes, well, do you know who Perri Chase is? And have you heard of pussy breathing? And I was like, no, and I need to know everything.
She's like, I don't know what pussy breathing is. So if the pussy breathing is not me.
Okay, no, hold on. But you have your pussy program.
Yes.
Is it not a stroke method?
It is.
Okay, so she called it something different.
Okay, yeah.
But the point is, it was your program because she sent me all your information. So then I started going through the entire website and your social media and all this stuff. And so I need to know, number one, you'll explain to our listeners what this all means, what it embodies, but I need to know how you got there.
Okay. Many thousands of years ago, I apparently signed up for something. I'm in like an ancient priestess lineage, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how to, it's funny. I actually had a reel that I had to take down because it didn't do Instagram didn't like it, but it was like, like the 5 ways that that you come from an ancient priestess.
Why would they take that down?
What are the 5 ways?
It had the word sex in it too much.
No, that's a better question. Answer Rachel's question.
Yeah.
I'd have to pull it, but a lot of times it's like early sexual trauma. This might be too much for your listeners.
No.
Early sexual trauma or remembrance of being connected to sexuality very like from a young age, really not like where your partners kind of get initiated through sex with you, like men like really have big awakenings in your field of sexuality. Lots of demonization, right? Priestess lineage women tend to hold a lot of the dark feminine that is very demonized in the world. There's lots of yeah.
So you were saying something quite different. I'm like, Perri, you are really not selling this.
It's a hard path.
No, it is a hard path.
No, you're asking me the signs of like ancient priestess lineage.
Right.
So women that I know, because the initiations in life around this tend to be very shamanic, but they are sexually shamanic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We just dove right in, real.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we do. Just keep going.
Yeah. Okay,
How
so I end up here. So no,
yes.
I joke because I think that ultimately those are the energies that end up guiding us into experiences. And then, I around 2012, well, I had already had a regular spiritual awakening in 2008 with a teacher who was of more of a, like a Buddhist Hindu background of regular spiritual. I'm going to call him a regular spiritual teacher.
The starter pack. That's where you start.
Yes, the starter path. Met him in Bali in 2008. So I was already kind of on a spiritual awakening path. I'd already kind of destroyed my whole life previously, and changed everything. But in 2012, I ended up, a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to go to a pussy stroking class. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I'm like, oh, first of all, like, what is this? What do you mean a pussy stroking class? And she was like, yeah, so you go to the class and you learn this practice where, someone else strokes your pussy for 15 minutes. And I'm like, I mean, like the math in my head, I know the
somebody else does it.
Yes.
15 minutes.
Yes. And this is a practice called orgasmic meditation. And it was created by Nicole Didon.
Okay. Hold on a second. We're not glossing over this. We're not just glossing over this.
Tell us how you pause.
Right. I'm sorry.
This is not my practice. This is the history and how I got into it.
No, this is fascinating.
Well,
so what do you mean?
I was going to say.
No, Amanda, hold on, girlfriend. It's very important what I'm about to ask, okay? Very important. Okay? This is going to get taken down YouTube. Simon's going to go balls to the wall on this one. But, are we talking about, patting a cat? Or are we, talking about, the end product, we're coming at this point? Because that's very I'm sorry, but that's I need to know what the boundaries are with this.
Okay. Yeah, because we're not going to do this as a group session, guys.
No.
we did. We definitely
Someone would be left out.
So God, this is not what I expected today. But here we are. But anyway, so someone invited me to this class, and all I could keep thinking in my head at the time was like, wait, so I can go and get my pussy stroked and not have to date the person?
Okay.
Line Rachel up.
But I was kind of like, I
think I just fell in love.
I just was like, I couldn't understand it. I could not wrap my head around it. But I ended up going to the class with a lot of resistance. And I won't get all into all of it, but let's just say that it was absolutely life-altering experience. And the practice itself, I started to do the practice in the community. And I would say that there's this way where when people begin to have an awakening, if you just have an awakening up here, mentally, and you think you can see things differently, until it hits the body, right? And until it hits the body, you have not had an awakening, right? Until you begin to actually clear out all of the stuff, right, that your body holds at the greatest amount of density, right? Energetically, you're just holding the most in your body until you begin to really move that. And I believe that the only way that you can really do that is with, people do it with breath, but breath, I think it's the sexual energy that really does it.
How do you develop a connection with the practitioner while doing that? Because that's really intimate.
Right.
So it's okay. I'm not going to say it wasn't weird. It's just it was a very, and this is not my practice. My practice, just so you know, is a solo practice. I re-engineered the practice. So in that practice, first of all, it's a community, right? So you do get to know people, but there is no sexual expectation beyond the practice. So they've really almost sterilized it to the point where people wear gloves. There's an entire way that the practice happens. There's a way that you ask to do the practice. And it becomes, I want to say it's almost not sexual.
Right.
That sounds crazy, but to the point where it's it's much more of a spiritual practice than it is a sexual practice.
Okay, then let's get to your program specifically, especially because it's a solo, right? And I gotta be honest. Hold on.
But you asked me how I got here, so that's how I got here. I met my husband there. I met, it was a beautiful time of my life. Some of my best friends from the world that come from that community. It was.
Oh, listen,
I have nothing negative to say. Is basically
no. And here's the thing, you're preaching to the choir, at least for me. I'm like, tell me more. Only
it's
because
great for couples. It's a great practice for couples. Yeah.
But I remember when, so when I first came upon you, and of course I signed up for your like email list. And so you had like a live call and I was like, oh, this is great. I really get to know about it. And I was listening, but I think I had a client or something like towards the last half hour or 45 minutes. And that is when I missed you actually, did you do did you walk people through the practice or what did you do?
Yeah, I take people through. All right, let me back up. Okay, let me explain the practice.
I was so mad at myself, by the way. Mad at myself.
So Sex Bomb is a solo guided stroking meditation. So what that means is that I am like guiding it, like I take people on a journey. And it is based in a lot of the principles of orgasmic meditation, the original practice that I practiced, in that it's goalless. So it's not like it's not a pleasure practice, because when you tell women like you're coming to do a pleasure practice, what if it's not pleasurable? Then they think they're broken or they're doing it wrong. It's not about that. It's about connection with pussy. It's about connection with your life force. It's establishing like noticing and approval for sensation and whatever is there. And ultimately what I have developed is an entire body of work that talks about how like actually the energetics in your pussy are very much a map of what's happening in your life. Right. So
you can walk us through that.
Yeah. So it's a bigger body of work, but I can give you a 2-minute tidbit. But like the idea meaning that when you begin to connect with your pussy in a way that is not simply an extractive event of pleasure or climax, and you really begin to tune into all of the nuances of sensation that are there, as well as like giving yourself that much time, slowness, presence, focusing on like the expansion of how much energy you can hold in your body, which by the way, you know, everybody wants to talk about nervous system work. One of the best ways to expand your nervous system is to hold more sexual energy in your body, right? Because what happens when you get triggered? What is that? It's sexual energy, right? Being triggered is like there's too much energy in your body, and then you freak out and you're victimized by the energy in your body more than the content of what you've been triggered by, right? It's actually that people are not comfortable with their emotions and their sensations. So
sorry, can I just ask? Yeah. So how does that make it sexual if you're because you get triggered by something? How does your reaction make it sexual?
Well, let's expand the definition of what sexual is, which is any kind of sensation in the body, involuntary sensation in the body.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
So like meaning that like your life force is sexual in nature. Your erotic life force, that energy that runs through your body is in essence sexual. We like to pretend like it's not. That's part of the cultural problem that we have. But it is. It's in essence, it's the sexual life force of a being. And a lot of the reasons why people are uncomfortable, right, is when their sensations in their body become more than they can hold or more than they can have approval for, right? When they are afraid of their own emotions, they're afraid of like what's going to happen if I have these emotions, right? And so when you think about it like that, does that make sense?
Yes.
It's a very different way of thinking of things.
Wait, Amanda, I want to make sure you.
I think so. I'm processing it.
Like for instance, let's just people in the birth space would say that birth is sexual.
Right. So is sexual also another, like equivalent to like creation
or erotic?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like anything that is of the life force is technically sexual. Like if we were using
Amanda, stop trying to act like you're not this sexy beast, okay? Like right now.
I'm not. Why?
Yeah,
What have I done?
it's
Wasn't me.
it's the deeply embodied energy, right? That we're all like alive with. It's life force.
Okay.
I think
Is this
that
exclusive to women?
No,
So you get men.
no. You mean is erotic energy exclusive to women?
No,
Or
erotic energy is
practice?
not exclusive to women. I mean, to men, to women. But like, I'm sitting here thinking about, like that.
I do not work with men in this practice.
Okay.
My
Yeah.
husband has some boundaries. He's like, I'm not sure about you leading men in anything.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, like no, because that turns into a porno, and like that's not what we're doing. Okay, like we're not in the OnlyFans chapter. We're in the like deep spiritual wellness chapter for women. Men do benefit from learning in my spaces how to relate to feminine energy within themselves. Not to become feminine, but how to like actually not hate the feminine, for instance. But the energetics of like the pussy work is obviously specifically for women. Yeah, you need a pussy.
So I suppose it's about re-education around what sexuality actually is, what all of that means, because for the most part, we I say I, or many I would have said sort of young people, growing and going into, say, puberty, or even growing up, young teens and young adults, don't have any understanding of sexuality in any way, shape or form anyway.
Right.
And so they're a million miles away even from this understanding of what you're giving. And what I think you're actually saying is the innate power that you hold within. We don't even know that that's what we have within, and that's what that energy, that power, that creative force, that life force, what that can go on to do, what you can do with that energy.
Absolutely.
Literally in the world, in every way, and we have no real concept of that.
Absolutely. And it's an awakening force. So a lot of times, when we in society, right, like we value functionality, right? We value being able to function. We don't value emotionally coming undone, for instance, and healing deep wounds of trauma, right? We value being able to like, put on a stiff upper lip and like move on, and like don't make any like don't make it hard for or uncomfortable for other people. And the thing is that like when I talk about triggers are the most powerful awakening force, because ultimately, what is it? It's a wound that something on the outside touches, and it's saying, this needs to be healed. This is not healed. And the reason that we also continue to attract things that trigger us is because we are being asked to heal the wound. And to heal the wound, you have to open up the energetics of what's inside of it. So anyway, like this all, you learn how to work with this in my practice. And it goes from like beginner, which is just basic touch, right? Of, getting in connection. I had a retreat last year in Hawaii, and 3 women had shared with me that they had never touched their pussy before they did my practice. And I was floored. I was absolutely blown away. And it is actually the conversation that had me commit even deeper to the work, because I had realized that I had been teaching it where I would have a class and people would just come and I'd be like, okay, put your finger down. We're going to do this practice. And it didn't occur to me how many women actually needed a whole rampon to even just that touch. And I was like, okay, we have to create that. So I created a whole body of work this year called the Pussy Map, which is, I'm hoping to roll out certifications. And I can imagine doctors working with patients with this, or sex therapists. And it's like an entire framework to have women look at their relationship with their body, their history. I brought in an incredible friend who teaches the sexological side of it, So both the anatomy, the nervous system, sexual responses. It's like the sex ed class you wish you had had as a kid. And we put all of this together, as well as the sex bomb practice. You know, we learn that at the end after people have kind of gone through this, what I would call psychological and emotional entry point of, hey, I want to have a relationship with my pussy. Even like, what do you think about the word pussy? Or like, you know, what were you taught about your pussy? Or have you had we go into like lots of different situations, birth, abortion, like all like first time that you touched yourself, sex, etc. We really look at the full gamut of it. And then we begin teaching the practice. And, you know, so we go from the very basics of practice to the more advanced, what I would call like sexual shamanism and you know, priestess work, which is more like really being able to work with that energy for your spiritual awakening and creation. Not in a not in a sex magic way, right? But in a like really relating to open yourself up to a spiritual path.
Thank you. So can I ask, where did the word pussy come from?
So
because many different people have different names for it.
Yeah, well, the word pussy comes from my lineage, and like so the lineage of orgasmic meditation, and also Mama Gina is part of that lineage as well on the other side. Like, so she and my teacher both came from the same place, right? And then they all use the word pussy. She wrote the book Pussy. Mama Gina, right? So it's just the lineage of women that I come from.
Yeah, that's interesting because I have a bit of a visceral response to the word pussy. I'm like, why not just call it vagina? Because that's
right.
a clinical term.
I'll tell you exactly why.
Yeah, so please educate me. Because I'd like to
pussy,
not.
To me, pussy is the entire womb space, pussy space, vulva, clit, all of it. And my practice is actually a clit focused practice specifically. But to me, pussy is like the whole thing and the energetic of the whole thing and the portal, right? It's a portal. It's the only portal to the divine on earth is a woman's pussy, right? Like, it's a pretty special.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so it is the location where spirit and matter combine. Right.
Combine, yeah.
And so to me, it's the entire piece. And vagina's translation actually means sheath, which means that the purpose of it is for man's penis. And that's just not the full meaning.
That's just wrong.
I mean, listen, I love me some good dick, okay?
But I want to know. I want to go smack the man who made pussy not a good word, because I'm sure it was.
Well, that's the thing, though.
It was derogatory. It was meant to be derogatory.
Right.
Yeah. And so we're claiming it back as women. Is that what it's
it had
about?
to be a man involved in that. So.
Yeah, because even when you say the word vagina, it feels flat.
Totally.
When you say the word pussy, there's this energy behind. Yes.
Like but you know that different cultures call it different names even as you're like growing up. You know what I mean? So so we've got patter cake.
Either. I can't do it yoni.
Well, you don't yoni, okay. But you've got patter cake, okay.
You got
patter
what?
cake, which is what patter cake, right? So we're talking about Guyanese sort of like Caribbean cultures. They've got wild names for, you know what I mean, for the pussy. So patter cake. I've heard some people call it money box, and that's not like not money box. Yeah, but it's money box. You know, like your saving. You know, like your piggy
like
bank.
your piggy bank.
You know, you've got so they call it money box, not because you're going out and you're like selling your goods. Money box because of
my money.
But it looks like there's some wild names out there. Do you know what I mean? So I thought maybe you guys had some other names.
I think that you have to be careful, because to me it's like the name can't avoid it. It is the name avoiding the nature of what it is and the sacredness of it. I mean, some people really like yoni, but I find yoni to be too flowery.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, it doesn't capture like the base of it as well. like the bass
I find
note.
pussy wild. That's
Nice.
going to take some
So
integration.
anyway,
I'm gonna go into a little bit of TMI. Just, I mean, not too much, but
boy.
just a little, I know. Okay,
have
so
we not have we not entered into TMI?
Right.
Yeah, anyway, so like
personal TMI.
that's how I arrived at this. And then the one thing I want to say, I do want to add this. I was very resistant. Like there are a lot of people who just want to go out and they're like, I want to teach pussy and all this. And I'm like, I did not. I like it like chose me. I don't know how to explain this, but like I did not. It was very confronting. It's confronting, like even like, oh my God, I'm on these podcasts talking about pussy. How did I become this woman? Like what,
Right.
How did this happen to me? Right. but really it's too powerful and too healing and too important for me to not. Like it's just, it would be really a disservice. Like if I didn't serve this medicine.
Right. And so when you talk about sexual energy, most people view it as having sex with somebody or being too promiscuous or you're a nun, like this whole thing, right? And so for me, I had a moment not too long ago where because I fully embody myself as a woman. I sit in that energy. And I remember in a moment of intimacy, all of a sudden, it wasn't about the pleasure. All of a sudden, I was like, I'm not being filled up by, oh God, a man. I'm being filled up with creation and possibility and all this stuff. And I remember in that moment being so conscious of what do I want the universe to fill me up with? And it just felt like this creation. It was the wildest experience. And that's when I started to view it in such a bigger depth. That's why when I heard about your program, I was like, oh, okay, it's not about the pleasure. It's about a creation. It's about intention and purpose and all that stuff. And so that's why I was like, I am so curious because I need to know more.
Yeah.
Right. So your stroking method is for what purpose?
So on the higher level, right? The way that I would describe it is that the stroking allows you to have your sexual life force clear and open your vessel so that you can actually be in union with God. So when we're in our ego and when we're all closed down physically, and like the way that I would describe it is that most people are walking around with compartments of stuck energy. Now,
right.
We can call that trauma, we can call that whatever, but to me, they're compartments of closed, stuck energy, then layered with masks on top. And a lot of times with spiritual awakening, people are sitting and they're meditating, they're trying to make their mind go away, but they're not actually clearing the vessel, right? When you begin to work on expansion of your sexual energy, cultivation of your sexual energy in a really mindful way, it can help you, like, I want to say, like, melt and heat up the crystallized patterns, the thoughts, the bad habits, like the places where you're just closed, where you can't receive, right? People are depressed, not because they have a mental health problem. They're depressed because they're disconnected from God. And whether or not, I'm not talking about this in a religious capacity. I'm just talking about like the source energy, like when you're disconnected from the oneness, right? When you're so disconnected, right? That is where we feel lost and lonely and like purposeless and depressed. And actually anxiety, is actually creation energy. And people don't like anxiety or to feel anxiety, but anxiety is saying like, I am energy that is available to be used for change. Are you ready to change? I'm here. I'm ready to change with you. Right. But we say that it's bad and we don't want to feel it. And so then we, have a drink or take a Xanax or, whatever it is. But actually that energy, again, I see it as sexual life force, is becoming available in order so that we can make the changes to get into alignment with the deeper thing in our life. And the mind doesn't like that journey.
So while you're doing this physical practice mentally, you're focused on
the sensation.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
So you're literally observing the sensation, and that's it. There's no fantasy, you know, there's no thinking about lunch. Like, you're literally focused on the sensation of like having attention. The way I like to describe it is like, you know, if you went scuba diving, had you guys scuba dive?
Like surfacey.
A little bit. Well, like the first time you go scuba diving, all you want to see is like big stuff, right? Like you get down there and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And like, you know, you want to see big fish and colorful things and sharks and, you know, like whatever you want to, well, maybe you don't want to see a shark the first time, but
Right.
like,
I don't want to say one of those things.
you want to see the big stuff. And then what happens over time is like, maybe you went on a night dive, and night dives ended up, I was a scuba diver for a while, and night dives ended up being one of my favorite things, where like literally at night you have your flashlight and it's dark and you have like 1 square foot of coral that you're just like looking at all the details, and you find the little shrimp living underneath. And it's like, you would never even see any of that during the day when you're just swimming over the reef. And so I kind of look at my practice this way, in the sense that sex bomb is like, you're never going to even stop to notice the sensations that you can feel in a practice like this, in just regular sex and masturbation, because you have a neurological groove of what you like and what you're used to. You wouldn't even bother to notice everything in the full palette of what's possible. And by the way, that is a mirror of how most people are living, right? They do not even notice half of the beautiful things in their lives.
Yeah.
Because they're just not aware.
So how does
it
this
cultivates.
translate in a person who has some sort of sexual trauma?
Mm-hmm.
I would say a lot of people who come to me have sexual trauma. Look, I am not a trauma therapist. I'm going to just say this really like clearly. I am not a trauma therapist. We do have people who are trauma trained, like in my staff, if people do need it. But usually people come to me when they're like ready to move beyond, like they want to open something up. They've already worked through it in many different ways, and they're like, okay, I'm ready to work with this energy. One of the things that I do is I neutralize the story, meaning that we really work with the energy itself. And I will tell you that in my experience, what has been reported to me by women who do this and have actually worked with themselves to hold themselves and their own system through opening up their trauma. I would say it like that. I will use those words, opening up the energy that was inside of their trauma. They have said to me, Perri, I cannot believe that the thing that I was afraid of was my own life force. The terror, right? Because really, if you listen to someone like Gabor Mate, or like even in Kabbalah, like I was just at a Kabbalah retreat, and Rav Daniel Katz had written something about what Kabbalah says about trauma. And it's like, when there was too much energy for, let's say, a child or a person at some point of their life, when the system gets over flooded, there is sometimes a fracture, a break, a collapse in the system, and then that becomes the trauma. Gabor Mate has other things to talk about in terms of like, how were you held during that? Were you able to be seen? Like, was it a secret? You know, like there's lots of other things that contribute to it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're looking at is the nervous system and the relationship to energy. And so when you see women begin, and I say begin to heal themselves, because I'm not proclaiming that the practice or myself are healing them. They are cultivating a relationship with their own pussies, right? And yes, I'm facilitating these meditations, but I'm also teaching them how to work with the energy that becomes present. And we're doing it in a way that isn't having them relive their trauma, right? You know, like there's no need to go and like relive something or talk about the story or retell it, right? You can actually neutralize it and say, okay, we're going to work with what's in the body, what's there. And look, I have pre-verbal trauma that's not sexual, but I know the location because I had both womb trauma and I was adopted. So these things, these traumas create terror. And I mean like existential life, death level terror in people. But once you understand what it is and you practice working with the energy of it, what's on the other side of it is unbelievable. So,
we
I
actually,
don't promise anything, of course, like, cause I think everyone is different, and, I would never do that. Like, people have to come to it themselves.
right. And so we actually have a whole episode we dedicated to talking about the fact that no one can heal you. When you come to a session, when you go to a program, that person is not healing you. They're creating that space for you to come in, and you have to do the work and the healing on your own. Totally. And so when I think about your program, I just think, especially for somebody who may have been in that situation, I've never experienced this, so I don't claim to know, but it feels very much like you're building trust within yourself and that in your body. And when you do that, you're able to then grow that and then have beautiful, really healthy relationship sexually with somebody else, right? It's not like this.
We don't even get to that. I don't even talk. I like, honestly, like to me, that is like 5 steps out. Like it happens. It's a result. But like when I'm teaching this work, it's literally about the woman and her relationship to her pussy. That's it. It's really not for a man, about sex.
Right.
It's really not. And yet, listen, we have great results of that in terms of like, yes, people definitely report better sex. Women who were having a hard time getting pregnant, get pregnant. Like there is something about opening the vessel.
Yeah.
Like how open are you? How available are you? Right? More intimacy, more money. All of these things are results, but I don't sell it that way because that's not the point. It just happens. Right? And so, yeah, like of course better sex is reported. But people also break up with relationships because they're like, oh, this isn't true. Because what happens when you really connect it to your pussy, you have a totally different understanding of what is true. Right? Yeah. It is like an anchor of like this eternal truth in your body. And you're just like, wow, I really wanted this to be true. And it's just not. And so
I need an example.
I mean, like the way that most people in their lives, when they're getting going, right? You're making decisions based on survival, right? Like ideas of things and like who you want to be or how, to keep your life safe and live a good life. And it's about being a good person and all of this stuff. And people are like mask. And they want all these things. Oh, daddy said, if I'm a lawyer, I'm going to be a good girl and, go to law school and do all the things and marry some guy because he had the right resume. And then one day you start touching your pussy and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, my entire life is really a lie.
That's what I'm doing wrong. Okay. Okay.
Perri, I'm dying to know, like, I know we're all wanting to know about the technique, but we really did have a very big gap between how you started and then we just went off. Can you tell us about some of the experiences you had in your life in between getting connected with your pussy and teaching pussy that, when you said that pussy life chose you, tell us some of the examples of that.
I mean, I guess I'll even say, listen, I was a headhunter on Wall Street when I started my career. Okay. Like I lived in New York City. I was a headhunter. I did really, really high level kind of poaching of Wall Street talent. And that actually brought me to Hong Kong. And then like, I had achieved a lot of success at a very young age. So I was making over $1 million a year at like 26, 27 years old.
Getting a girlfriend.
I had it like, but here's the thing, because I climbed the ladder so fast, the ladder was not a fantasy for me. And it wasn't something that was like a carrot, Bye, honey.
Yeah.
I was like a carrot, right? That kept it. I didn't eat, I ate the carrot. I was like, okay, I got the carrot. Great. We're here. And what I realized very quickly was like, where the fuck is my happiness?
Yeah.
Like I did everything. I checked every fucking box. I was like, I'm like, just, you know, and look, I would think that is me running from my own trauma, like of that feeling like I just want home. I just want a man. I just want, you know, and I would have given up my entire career and all of that money for a man and like the feeling of safety in a relationship. I would have given all of that success for a man at the time. And I even had a boyfriend at the time. Like it wasn't like I really had it all. And then I went on vacation to Bali by myself. And I made a very important decision. And it was like whether to go to yoga or go have a sunset cocktail. And I chose the cocktail. And I met these two girls. I know, right? Everyone's like, you chose the yoga. No, I chose the cocktail. Choosing the cocktail was actually a really important part of my journey. And I met these women from Canada who were there and they were on this retreat. And I didn't even know what the fuck they were talking about. I'm like, what is an enlightened master? I'm like, is this like Katut from Eat, Pray, Love? Like, what is this? So they're like, you just have to meet him. So I went and I met this guy. His name is Dion Vimal. He's actually he's a great teacher and he's online. He's brilliant. And, he came from like the Osho Krishnamurti lineage of teachers. He is an enlightened master. And, when he met me, he was standing there and he was smoking a cigarette. He's wearing this like white tunic and some jeans. And he just looks at me and he's like, you know what your problem is? He's like, you manifest everything you don't want. And I was like, nailed. I'm like, what do you got? What do you got for me? And then they like had me come into this retreat. And I was like, this was so uncomfortable for me. Like, I was like, what am I doing? What, these people are fucking weird, dancing around. They're praying. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I really was so blown out. But he had me do this exercise where I was really looking at the things that created the life I was living. And I got down to this belief and I realized that so much of the life that I was living was to please other people, that it was to show my worth or that I was capable or whatever. And it was like someone pulled the card out from the bottom of the house of cards. And I left Bali on a Sunday and I called my boss in New York on a Monday. I had been staying at his house in Bali. And I called my boss in New York and I said to him, I'm done. It was like I couldn't go back. It was like it was like the screen broke. Yeah. And I was like, I cannot go back. So I'm a crazy motherfucker and I jump off cliffs like that. Like I mean, I don't know anyone who quits a career like I had in the way that I quit. I mean, like it's like I literally walked out the door. I gave them some time to like turn things over, but I closed the door on that whole timeline of my life. That would have not been a happy timeline. I probably would have gotten sick. I probably never would have gotten married. Like I would have had a lot of money and been very successful, but like it was a miserable timeline. And I literally just collapsed it in like one go. And then I spent about 2 years in the dark, completely lost, unwinding my whole life, spent all of my money, went totally broke, woke up crying every day for a period of time. Like it was so dark. Like, and I made it out alive.
How?
I don't know. My soul's strong. I just did. I just kind of climbed out and then I was down. I mean, I lost everything. And I think that's a really important experience. A lot of people don't have the reverence for that kind of dark journey, but that's kind of like what I hold people through, right? Is that kind of unraveling, that kind of like my main program, like my main like priestess like program is called is called Chrysalis, right? It's like literally like you go into the dark and you dissolve and you're held, but it is, I mean, anyone who's called to the, like what I would call the left-hand path, right? Which is like the feminine path of like dissolution, which is all like the pussy work too, right? It's beautiful. It's so underrated. People don't really appreciate how gorgeous the dark is. It's like the womb and like the soil, and it can be extremely nourishing to let go of like all the things that prop us up.
You know, I think it's because, and I can speak for myself, for the longest time, I was all like, love and light, love and light. That's it. I only want the positive. I don't want to acknowledge anything dark, whether it was outside of me or inside of me. And it wasn't until maybe the last 5 or 6 years where I started to become okay with seeing the shadow aspects of external and internal things that were happening.
But
And
the
then
shadow and the dark are not as necessary.
okay, fine. Then I'm using the
same.
wrong word, but I mean the darkness, right? And so when
because wait, hold on. I want to just stop you for just 1 second, because the dark, okay, what people think is dark is what they have defined as bad.
right.
And that is not, like, there is so much of the dark that is not bad. The things that people think actually that are bad are actually disconnected. The darkness itself is part of the whole and is actually quite nourishing. What you're thinking about is this split off, disconnected, what I call synthetic darkness, which is disconnected from source. Different.
Okay.
This could become a whole thing. Oh my God.
No.
Do a very
Okay, but yes, but see now, because I need to know everything, right? I can't just you dangled the carrot and I need to get the carrot. So just for quickly, get me into an example of that true darkness, right? Not the synthetic.
So the womb.
The womb, yeah.
The
Sorry.
womb, the soil.
Duh.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Where have I been?
Right. So
What's this episode about?
the womb and the soil, the kind of like grief.
Yeah.
Grief is like one of, like, when you talk to people who have experienced real grief.
Yeah.
Grief is, they say, you know, it's where the light is like the cracks or where the light gets in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning it's the things that break us, right? Like that grief is a darkness, but it is something that actually brings us back to connection with source, God, right? With that bigger field, right? It has a breaking, but it's beautiful, right? Grief is a hard process, but if you speak to anybody who's really experienced deep grief, they don't regret it. It's one of the most like wild, nourishing, spiritual experiences is that kind of grief. And so, like, I would say that that's an example of something that's built in to our humanity, right? But what isn't, what real, like the darkness that I think, you know, people think about when they think about darkness, it's like from the mental layer. It's not actually so much from the physical layer. It's like these distortions of ideas that like feel like you're in like a locked room, right? In the mind. That's where that kind of stuff lives. You could get into a whole multi-dimensional thing on this too, but I don't want to.
Yeah,
Well, then you must come back and do that later.
Multi-dimensional pussy.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
Amanda,
You know, I was also kind of thinking ahead, like is Kylie gonna pull a card from her pussy deck? Is Lauren gonna read what poem Lauren's written for us from 40 years ago? That is coming in today, but you know, we're not there yet. But and how Jan is actually going to put this reel out there. This is going to be wild.
No, you know what?
Going through
This is I am
going
this
through
is this is some really powerful stuff, because I've always known years ago from like young when I mean, but that's me being in sort of like a magic class, like a magic group that, and funny enough, I was going to say to you guys that, you know, I just look, I've had this book on my shelf, but this book is so I've had this book on my shelf for like 30 years. and it's called The Art of Sexual Magic. And I know that's probably slightly different because it also uses sort of like tantric sex and, well, tantric sexual energy, but it's actually described as the art of sexual magic takes the power of sexuality beyond mere lovemaking by showing you how to generate intense sexual energy and use it as fuel for realizing your personal and spiritual goals.
So the only caveat that I put on sex magic, okay,
yeah,
a lot of times what's happening is that the ego is using the sexual energy as opposed to using your sexuality to open and then have a closer relationship to God, right? So like, I specifically don't use my sexual energy to try and get things that like my woman wants, right? Like I don't use it to make money or anything like that. I find that when I am just alive and open and happy, all the rest of it comes anyway. But it's not because I'm like, I want that. And it's like, I'm going to use my sexual energy to get that. And that's one thing that you have to be careful about, because without getting into like all of the things, a lot of times what's really happening is that people are trading their sexual energy with something that is delivering for them and they don't realize.
Yeah. But I also kind of realized on a deeper level, I guess, like years ago, that sexual energy is, as you first described it, it is a creative force.
Absolutely.
And so I guess that's what it can draw, all different kinds of minds. So it can draw the minds that are maybe purely based on the ego, because you know that in that moment, what can be created because of what it is original, because of what that energy actually is. So like how you said, it is that creative life force. So out of that can come many manifestations of all different kinds that you're looking for. Yeah. Wow.
That's fascinating, because I never thought, I know this might be silly, but I never thought about it as creating. I always thought about it as releasing and grounding.
You working with pussy?
Yeah.
Well, I think that because a lot of times people do use it as an off-gassing valve.
Yeah.
Right. And that's such a beautiful way to put it. But
it's very sexy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because like when you get
offset my valves.
when you get like people saying like, you know, if you could feel the start of a migraine coming on, the best thing to short circuit a migraine is, in a sense, is an orgasm.
Really?
Okay,
because it
resets
the brain.
That's new for me. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because it releases the tension.
It relaxes, and it relaxes like the arteries, the veins, so that the blood will flow. So it does something. It dilates something to the
Team Amanda,
and it releases oxytocin too, which is a neuroprotectant.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
You know, it's funny because Lauren, maybe like a year or two ago, you shared with me Tasha Silver's abundance and worthiness prayer. What's it called?
Abundance Change Me prayer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you are saying these words, right, and it is about abundance and bringing all these beautiful things into your life. I remember thinking to myself, by the time I'd finished reading it, I was energetically in a different space. So then I started going, oh, I actually want to go into that space before I even say the words. And so I remember going to myself, okay, I need to think of a moment where I was like, I felt the most loved or the most joy, like that kind of thing. And it immediately, 9 out of 10 times, would go to like an intimate moment that I shared with my partner, right? And it was just this immense feeling of just love. And it wasn't about the sex, it was about that connection and that intimacy. And I was very well aware of the fact that by the time when I got into that space and then I said my prayer, by the time I finished, the amplification energy of the words I had just said felt like they were just bursting out into the world. It was such a different space, but it was about that love energy, that creation energy, if you will, right? That God force, that masculine and feminine coming together. And it changed how that prayer plays out for me and my thinking around all of that, right? So then I share that with people because I'm like, I promise you, if it worked for me, it'll work for you. Right. Because and I don't practice everything that I preach, right? Because I also am a procrastinator and I am not a finisher like Rachel.
Divine timing.
Right, totally.
Talking finishing of
I don't have the
projects, not finishing
discipline.
of sexual experience. Just
Oh, yeah.
but yeah.
But anyway, connecting those dots was so huge. And so I think it's so important. Like even as parents, we all have girls here, right? And so how do you teach your daughter how to really embody and love that part of herself, how to use it properly, how to understand what she's doing?
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think the first thing is like not to shame your child's body or like their relationship with their body. Like I had a conversation with someone yesterday who was telling me about their mom losing it when she found out she had sex with someone in college. And she was like, you're gonna not be able to get married because some guy is going to worry about your body count and all this. And I was like, oh my God, stop doing that to women. Stop, like stop shaming their sexual desires. Like, I'm not saying that, look, I don't agree with the whole OnlyFans thing either. Like, I think
Right.
that's gone too far, but like we should be allowing our children to have their own relationship with their bodies. You know what I mean? And like, we should not be getting in the way of that or telling them what they can do or how they can touch their bodies, or, you know what I mean? Like, you just stay out of the way. Like, just don't, until it's a conversation to be had, don't interfere. Don't project your own shame or your own discomfort or your own ideas or any of that onto them. Let them be like an individual. That's kind of how I think about it anyway.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's so tough. I have a 3-year-old, right? And so I remember like not too long ago thinking, oh, like I should start kind of like not introducing topics, but like, for example, letting her know nobody can touch your vagina. Nobody can touch your butt. That is your own space. And so like we'll be walking in the store and she'll go, Mama, nobody touches my vagina, right? And I'm like,
with that, can I just add something to that? I was having a conversation with a practitioner once, and we were talking about the fact that, he was telling me that, we say these things, no one should touch this and no one should touch that. He said, but what we don't say is, and if someone does, it's not your fault and you need to tell me.
Right.
Because the child can then, internalize that as, oh, I shouldn't have let that person touch it, and have a shame response and then not speak. So I just think I think that's brilliant. And it's a really important thing for people to know about when you have those conversations with your children, just to make that really clear. This, is your space. No one should cross that line. And if they do, come straight to me. Do you know what I mean?
Funny enough.
And I also give you permission to, do whatever you need to do to get away.
But if
I was
you're
having this conversation just yesterday. Wow. If you're
an over paranoid parent and you project all of your fear onto your child, they're more likely to not tell you, because your reaction to them is that you're always kind of fearful and crazy. And so like, you need to be like a calm, steady force for your child to come to you, not like a neurotic force. Right. And so I think that's like an important piece too, is that you demonstrate embodied boundaries and centeredness, and then you show your child what a grounded, boundaried, embodied person looks like.
Emotionally regulated.
Right. And then they have an example of that, and that's what they end up actually mimicking. And then they know how to say no. And then you have to respect their boundaries too, like in general, right? We always like want to say like, it's just these parts, you have boundaries. No. They have boundaries, period.
Right.
But if we're constantly overrunning their boundaries, don't be surprised when their boundaries get overrun. Right? You want to teach your children that their boundaries on everything matter. Right? Not just these parts. Like when your child says no, no. Right?
Totally.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people have a hard time with that.
Yes.
That's a
Does
big
that
one.
goes for everything?
Amanda.
Yeah. Treating
Because,
children
like, I don't know, like that kind of thing of like, you can't come into my bedroom and you can't do this and you can't do that, and you're invading my privacy. Excuse you? I'll take that door off. You keep that out. The open door policy. But I'm saying that. No, I'm just saying,
I get
I
it.
respect all of that. But then there's also that thing whereby sometimes I do find, and this is going into a whole other realm, whereby, I do think that there can be a sense of boundaries no longer is about boundaries. It's about being rude and it's about being disrespectful to your parents, because you can't kick me out of your room because you don't like what I'm saying, or because you don't like that because I'm having a conversation with you, or I'm telling you that, you can't do this or you can't do that, or you can't put a sign on your bedroom that says like no entry to your parents. That's just like, listen, like I said, that door comes off those hinges quite easily. And that might sound harsh, but I'm just saying, I've never taken a door off the hinges. But
there are boundaries on your side too, right? So it's like there are boundaries on both sides, and how you dance between them in the most respectful and conscious way, I guess.
Yeah.
Too, right?
Yeah,
Because there are
and I guess
boundaries,
the boundaries
as a
are
parent.
age appropriate. Yeah, I think, and I think also boundaries are age appropriate. Do you know what I mean?
I think you want a rebel versus a doormat. Like I would rather my daughter fight me.
Yeah.
On things.
I totally agree.
Then roll over and just, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know. I appreciate the little rebels, because I think it shows that they're asserting themselves, and that means you did a good job, right? Like you did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, my middle child will be asking me why can't I do that? And I'm like, because I said so.
You
And then she's like, that's not a good enough answer.
No, it is.
Say that again, Kylie.
I was just going to say, my middle child will be like, well, why can't I do that? And I'm like, because I said so. And she's like, well, give me the middle finger or something. The equivalent of middle finger of a little 10-year-old. Oh no, but it's good because it makes me think.
Yeah.
Why do we put these boundaries in place? Why do we tell them no?
Yeah.
Was it because it's a safety thing, or because you think it's societal norms to not pull that wedgie out in public or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, my daughter is very stubborn and very headstrong, and I'm consciously grateful, even though in one part as a parent, I'm like, like, just do it. But on the other side, I'm like, future CEO, total boss babe, won't take shit from anyone. You go, girl. Like, you're just really hard to parent, but I love you.
I had a conversation with my daughter last night, where she's 7 and she's done a couple of these entrepreneurial business fairs. We homeschool her, and so we enroll her in some of these things, and she's done 2 of them now, and she's had her taste of both making some good money and failure. But last night she said to me, she was like, we were talking about college. She's like, I'm not sure I want to go to college. And I said, well, we'll see what happens. I'm like, there's time. Colleges are really changing right now. There's like a lot happening in college. And she's like, and I said, but a lot of times if you want to get a job, like college is a good thing, and you make connections, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But she's like, a job. She's like, I don't want to work for anybody else. I'm going to work for myself. And I'm just like, this girl, she knows already. Right. And her assertion and her surety, right, is a lot, because I feel like, because we haven't prescribed a lot for her. Like, meaning, we let her do her thing. And then I only adjust for safety, personally.
See, I come from a time, I remember when I said that to my mum, and the walk home from shopping was probably one of the worst walk homes I've ever had. I was like 15, turning 16. And she said to me, you guys, we had my cousin living with us then, and, we were the same age, born a day apart. And my mum said, you know, you guys are hitting 16 whereby, you know, you're going to want to start getting your own little things and bits and pieces and stuff like that. She said, so, you know, you still need to start looking for like a Saturday job. And I was like, you know, oh, I'm not going to go working for anybody. I'm going to work for myself. Well, that 15-minute walk home was the worst walk home of my life. That weekend, I went out and got myself a Saturday job. But that was more because I grew up in a time and space whereby, you know, the kind of entrepreneurism that exists today for young people and people growing up didn't exist in my time.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And so like the thing is that you know, I have the oldest kids amongst all of us. You know, my youngest is 27. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, and I think you know, I think my kids are pretty strong. They're pretty I think they're pretty amazing kids. Do you know what I'm saying? But I still do think that, you know, we were having a conversation the other day. Was I maybe one of the more stricter parents? Maybe I was. I had a very low threshold for crap. I didn't bring you into this world to just make my life a goddamn misery. And so, you know, let's have fun. Do you know what I mean? Let's have fun. Stick by the rules. Do you know what I mean? But it is, do you know?
I don't think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think that's wrong. I think every family system has their style of parenting and like values, and like, you know, you did what you thought was right for them.
Yeah, I think so. The thing is, I find my kids are quite, I think they're quite we were having a conversation just yesterday. It was Mother's Day. We went out me and two of the kids went out for a walk, and we were having a conversation about something, about somebody that my kids are the kind of kids whereby I don't think they take any prisoners. And so sometimes I think that they can be quite harsh. So it's a case of my son is the kind of person whereby if you're in a job and you don't like your job, he said, then change your job. Don't sit there for years as a young person. You're like in your 20s or 30s, sit down there moaning, I hate my job, I hate my job, I hate my boss, I hate my boss. And all 5-10 years later, you're still in the same job, moaning and whining. Jesus Christ, change your job. Otherwise, shut up. Because obviously you don't like it. No, obviously you like it enough to stay, but not enough to go. Do you know what I mean? And I always think, oh, that's kind of harsh. You know, there's a lot of reasons why I think, but they go, no, Mom, we're not having that. We're not having that. Do you know what I mean? So it's really interesting. I see how they're doing, and then I sometimes wonder how are they like that? But you know,
because you did a good job.
I think I did.
You did a good job.
Get it, Amanda.
Pat yourself on the back.
I think I did. But,
I did.
Yeah.
I like that because you did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perri, have you talked
very, very
to your daughter about sexual boundaries?
Me?
Yeah.
Not in a very light way of like talking about what you know, like physical sovereignty and you know, the basic boundaries of sexual boundaries, but we have not introduced the idea of violation. So like, I don't introduce her to anything that could cause her to hold a fear in her system that could create that.
Yeah.
Right. So like, we're also like, my husband and I are, I mean, she's with us almost all the time. We homeschool, and like, we are hawks. Like there are no sleepovers. She would never be left anywhere. You know what I mean? Like there is just, we are very strict around who she can be with. And so, you know, because both of us were like,
no, thanks. Yeah. We're not. Yeah.
No sleepovers. That's the conversation that me and my kids and like my daughter-in-law was having yesterday. No sleepovers.
No. And we're not having any sleepovers here either.
So dark. That's so tough, isn't it? But
okay, that is really
I understand.
What you just said, Perri, is really important, because I absolutely agree. It's not just you can't go sleep at somebody's house. It's about those children coming. And my brother talks about this all the time as a dad, right? He goes,
the world we live in today.
Right. He's like, the last thing I need is some child claiming or accusing that something inappropriate happened. I'm not doing it. And the thing is, as a child, it's really hard when you grow up in a strict household. You think your parents are the worst and your friends get to do X, Y, and Z, and I can't do anything. I was one of those kids. And I remember by the time I was 25, being like, oh, thank God I was raised in the environment that I was because of who I was at that time. And also because I was able to see the product of kids that were just could do anything, were all over the place, had no parental management, like nothing. And so you better believe my daughter is
We're
gonna have
living,
the same exact thing.
we are living in a very different time.
Yeah.
I mean, in Arizona, I think Arizona has one of the highest numbers of missing children in the country or something like that.
Yeah,
Like we
correct.
certainly have one of the highest numbers of we certainly have one of the highest numbers of drug use. Like, I mean, this is a different world. Like I see, we live in a nice neighborhood, okay, but we live kind of near the highway, and on the other side is not so nice. And we live in a good enough neighborhood that like you do see kids kind of playing and whatnot. But I swear, when I see like a one kid on his bicycle by himself, like a little kid, like not a teenager, kid,
right?
I am like, where the fuck is your mother? And
100%.
Do I need to take
100%?
You home? Because this is no joke what is happening out there with like the taking of children. I mean, I don't want to be like a weird conspiracy theorist.
No,
but it's not what it used to be. It's not what like, I grew up, you know, I was born in 1978. We just would go out and like, I was gone for hours.
Yeah, I used to go out and used to come back.
Those days are gone.
Cell phone or GPS, you know, I was on my bicycle and I was gone.
Yeah, you came back home for dinner time. You heard somebody shouting in the distance.
Right.
Not a chance I would let my daughter out like
wouldn't
that.
do that now.
Yeah.
No.
It's just not the world we live in. No.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting is that I do remember recently, I don't know if you guys saw it, was like there was a mother who was arrested because her son was 10 and like walked to the local store. Did you guys see that?
No.
Like it was like in Atlanta or North Carolina or something. It was like somewhere where like he was like, you know, it was like a 10-year-old kid and he was like walking to, I don't know, like the local like little grocery store, corner store or something from his house, I think less than a mile away. And because he was unsupervised, they arrested his mother.
That's wild. Because you get kids who walk to school every day.
I know, but I was like, wait a second, hold on. Parental choice, yes. To arrest someone because your kid, you decided that your kid was responsible enough to walk to the store and you felt like it was. I mean, like, I don't think she should have been arrested for that.
Yeah.
No, but right. And like here in this country, once you hit 11, you start secondary school, and most children, for the most part, and mine, I took them to school for the first year of secondary, but you know, because I didn't trust the world. But you know, I started in a sense training them to travel on the bus by themselves from the age of like sometimes on their on their last year at school, so that they could get used to having to go to school by themselves. And so I was just speaking this story yesterday, the other day, until one time my daughter was she was at secondary school though when this happened. She was coming home from I think her first or second year at school, and some guy was on the bus and he was intimidating her sexually. He was sitting behind her and he kept throwing his hands over the front of the seat. So you knew what he was trying to do. And he had come on the bus with a friend, but the friend wasn't sitting with him. So they were sitting apart. So they were on the bus to be doing Upper Madness. I had just come home from work and she called me. Well, I think she must have messaged me on the phone and said to me that, you know, this is happening. And for me, I said to her, I got all the details from her. And I said to her, you stay on that bus. I said, I'm coming right now. I said, you stay on that damn bus. I said, and so I jumped in the car. My eldest said to me, Mum, do you want me to come with you? And I said, yeah, if you want. I got to that bus. I knew because of the road. I got to that bus. I pulled my car up. Literally, I was like Starsky and Hutch, if any of you are old enough to know Starsky and Hutch. I pulled that car up in the road in front of that bus. This was the bus. I'm like this. And I just thought that bus ain't going nowhere until this gets sorted out. And I got on that bus and I said to the bus driver, but my daughter had got off the bus. I said to her, why have you got off the bus? So she goes, obviously she was frightened. I put her back on that bus. I said, you come tell me where that person is. And I said to the bus driver, I said, do you know that my daughter is being sexually assaulted on your bus? He didn't give a crap. He didn't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? He's just driving his bus, don't care. So I said, well, this bus ain't going nowhere until it gets sorted. So I took her upstairs, showed me the guy. Listen, and I went for him. And then his friend next to him started talking. And I said to him, no, shut your face. I said, don't fucking say anything to me. I said, because when I was initially asking him questions, you didn't want to say nothing. But now all of a sudden you've got something to say. I said, and then people on the bus started saying to him, you know what you've done? You know what you've done? Just own up, just own up. And I'll tell you what, I was going to listen. Listen, there would have been, and then this guy came over from the front of the bus and he took out his police ID. And he said to me, listen, he goes, I'm a plainclothes officer. No, not plainclothes officer. He said, I'm an off-duty officer. He goes, I'm on the bus here with my son, pointed out his son. He said to me, I can't have you threatening him. He said, I understand what's happening. He says, would you like me to take him off the bus and I can deal with it out off the bus? And so I looked at him and I looked at the thing and I said, well, you can deal with it now? So he goes, yeah. And I said, right, okay, fine. I said, and I just said to everybody, apologies for holding up the bus. I said, and we got off the bus and it wasn't a nice situation, but he went, he questioned the guy. He asked the guy because obviously the guy was here. He asked him for his papers and everything like that because, and then he said to me, he came and he had a chat with my daughter and me and stuff like that. And he said, well, what do you want to do? He said, because obviously he knows what he's been doing. He says, you can take this further, and explain to me all the different stuff. But I asked my daughter and I just thought to myself, her having to go through all of this at the age of 11, 12, not really understanding what's really happened, knowing that she just felt uncomfortable, and she was 100% right. And I just said to the guy, well, if you can give him a warning. He goes, yes, I can give him a, it's called something, which is a, it's like a written paper. It's a written up thing. They can call in another police officer to come and write them up and give them some, I forget what it's called now. And that was what happened that day. But what that reinforced to her was that, one, that she is protected, that she is safe, that wherever or whatever, that I'm gonna, I'm going to be there. But it was more the fact that the thing that I was shouting on the bus was, it's because of people like you that we can't let our children travel to school. She's 12 years old and I'm frightened for her. And this is what I was saying on the bus, which is why everybody was kind of like, compassionate and kind of like listening, that I'm frightened for her to travel on the bus because of people like you.
Well, with all due respect, they're compassionate while they're listening to you yell. They didn't do fuck all for her.
Yeah.
They didn't do nothing, but she didn't say anything.
If it were me, I would intervene.
Nothing.
I would say something. I think all of you would say something. There is no way that I would watch some shit like that go down. Yeah.
But you see, it was so subtle what he was doing, so that she didn't even know. She just felt uncomfortable. Then he kept putting his hands over the front of the seat. So, and so they do it very kind of, it's not like, it's not like you're being openly sexually assaulted. So now in our train stations and on London transport and everything like that, they have signs that says that encourages people to report, because there is such things as like coercive behavior, whereby someone's sitting down there and they're staring at you too long. It's very intimidating behavior. What many women have reported is that they don't even realize that they've been sexually assaulted. It takes them time. They're processing it, going up the escalator. What just happened? Back in the day, you used to have, well, even back in the day now, not now, back in the day now, you have.
That scares me though. Like, because I mean, look, they're arresting people in the UK now for speech. And so like, one of the things that I think can be scary is like where somebody is having an experience that's not actually happening like in a shared reality. I had this happen to me at an airport once, where this woman, like I was literally just there buying something, and the woman who was checking me out was like, don't look at me like that. I'm gonna call security. And I was like, look at you like what? I just want to pay for my thing. And so she had this whole experience about like, about literally nothing. And so like, I think we have to be careful. Like, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be like, I'm not saying we shouldn't protect people, but I think we also have to like have a free society where we can't just like let people's feelings make facts that aren't existing.
That
Do you
don't
know
exist.
But,
yeah,
like
I think there's a huge difference. I think what it is about, and we kind of know what it's about, especially here, like, you know, where people will, I know what it is. When I see it, you know what it is. There's an intimidating way in which you can be in a way that, okay, just like how like so we have pack trains. You have pack trains, I guess. But you have let's just say men that will go on the trains at these pack times, okay, and they are rocking. They're actually masturbating against you. They're rocking, they're rocking, and they're rocking, and they're rocking. And you know that, and that happens. And this is what they're actually, all the notices and all the signs about.
That's an actual physical act taking place.
That's
in
an actual
public.
physical act.
That's right. But like looking at someone the wrong way, I don't think so. I think that really starts to get into a land of
well, it's if you've got that crazy look in your eye, isn't it? So you need to like sort that out.
Right.
It's somewhat subjective. It's somewhat subjective.
What I'm saying is, like, you know, we can't start locking up people because someone says that they looked at them funny. Like that's just
because like this is just my face. This is how I look, man.
I mean, you guys have
this is how I look at people.
You guys have some crazy shit going on. You guys have some crazy shit going on over there. People being like, you know, like arrested for praying. People arrested for speech on
praying.
Facebook. Yeah, isn't that like the
arrested for praying?
Wow. My understanding is that they have arrested some people for praying inside of, I guess what these are like censorship zones.
Oh,
we don't have censorship zones
around like abortion clinics or something. Like you're not allowed to pray.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, anyway, like my whole thing is like when you start arresting people for like praying,
even speech. Even speech, like people getting arrested for things that they sent on Facebook and stuff. I mean, like that's really wild.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a time, even in the States, where it was getting out of control. And now there is a bit being reported out of the UK. But listen, I think if we, and maybe this is just my own brain, there is a space where I sit there and I think to myself, no, I'm living in a reality where all that is sorted out and that's not a thing. And I think what's happened, maybe I'm crazy, what's happened is there's been a huge shift. We were going way down and now that shift is starting to level out again.
Yeah.
Right? And there are crazy things happening all over the world.
Yeah.
No doubt. But okay, so while we've totally digressed,
as we do,
that was a runaway train.
Yeah,
good digression.
Listen, I'm here for it. Okay, I think
it's all relevant. It's all related in some way, though, right? Because, like, you know, what did we really start? Pussy is about sovereignty. Is about like you know boundaries. It's all related, which is how we ended up on all these threads. So I'm not surprised.
Listen, I love that you tied it back in for us, Perri. And now you're in a special treat because we have a few words from Lauren. Lauren does this beautiful thing on every episode. Give it to us, girl.
Okay, so this one's called permission. I give myself permission to feel, permission to cry, permission to heal, permission to be all that I am, to be someone who is not like them. Permission that I know that I am deeply connected and this may leave others affected. Digging through the thickest of mud, wondering how it is again I'm undone. And the truth is, this is what we are here for, to trigger each other, to open the door, to allow in the healing and the growth that we need. We asked for this. This is how we succeed. And it may feel hard and it may feel heavy, but we're clearing the path. You've got this. You're ready. Uncovering the secrets that lie within. Go on now. Dive in deep. Dive right in. You're being called to see past the veil, to reach the core at the end of the trail. The answers you seek, they are inside. Take a deep breath. You've got this. Let's ride.
I love that. Thank you, Lauren.
Did you know that my school is called Permission School?
Oh no.
Okay, well, listen.
That's
L-
perfect.
It's
Lauren,
just while people speak, I get pulled to different parts. Like I can't remember when I wrote this. It probably was about 8 years ago, but there was just something about it that brought me to it. So that's what I
Totally.
do. I don't actually write before the podcast. I just pull from my library.
It was so perfect.
Yeah.
Because
Thank you.
permission is really like a huge piece of what I teach. So thank you.
Thank
okay,
you.
let's tie in our Kylie with her cards. What do you got for us, Kylie?
Okay, so I thought that Rebecca Campbell's The Rose Oracle would be appropriate for, pussies today. I have realized that I have got a lot of work around using the word pussy, and I've got to sit with that. Like I seriously do.
You're doing a good job so far.
I've said it the most I've probably said it all year.
Yeah.
Pussy.
But
Pussy.
it rolls off your lips and it's so natural.
Now this is going to be the
great.
real pussy. There we go. Okay, so back to this. I need my fan for a second. Hold on, ladies.
I've got mine.
I can picture your husband being like, "What are they talking about?"
I know he's going to come in and go.
I'm
like,
watching that reel.
what day is that coming out?
Right.
Okay. So 2 cards: the Mother Rose, Whispers of Mother Earth, which I think is absolute. So I pulled these before Perri even got on. So I think these are perfect for, the rose is absolutely a representation of blooming pussy, and the flourishing and the growth, right? And then Whispers of Mother Earth is that darkness that you were talking about in the womb space and the growing and the ground, and it's just like this rose. So I guess if you are paying attention to the what do you want to like, it's not even like
Embody.
like it's about growing and becoming. It's not so much about creating, it's just about returning back. That's what I get from it. Feels very ancient.
Nice.
And now I'm getting goosebumps. Pussy. Thank you. Face.
Thank you, Kylie. Okay, Perri.
Thank you.
First of all, it was an absolute pleasure.
Yes.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say you will be back. And so like you have no option. Okay, like it's going to happen.
Okay.
Why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you and your work?
perrichase.com, and it's PERRI, and then Perri_Chase on Instagram. That's my revived account. Lost a bigger one because I'm so bad. I'm so dangerous. So yeah, Perri_Chase is a little bit dialed down. I made an agreement with my husband. We'll keep that one from getting canceled. And yeah, those are like the 2 places that I hang out mostly. So, and I have my own app. So like when people come in to do things, I have my whole world.
Yes, I love it. Thank you, Perri, for sharing with us. And listen,
Thank you, Perri.
I know your account was blacklisted for lack of a better word, because you're so outspoken, but I think, I believe that energy that you embody, where you're just like, I put it out there. This is me. I'm woman, hear me roar. That is the exact energy that has people look at you and go, I want to be that. Like, I want to be near that. I want to embody that. Can it get you in trouble? Sometimes.
Yeah.
But you present so true to yourself. And I know for me, like, I'm so attracted to that within you. Because I'm like, I need to be more.
You want to cultivate that, right?
Totally. Yeah. So I love that. Okay. So I've digressed a little bit, but everybody, this concludes our episode. Thank you for joining us today. If you're interested in booking a reading, a healing, a guided meditation session, a light body activation, you simply want to say hello to Rachel, ask her some questions. You want to get more information on Perri, go to yoursoulwisdomshow.com. If you want to join the membership, go to yoursoulwisdom.com. We thank you for yoursoulwisdomshow.com. My God. Okay. We thank you for allowing us to create this beautiful space, and we hope you have a blessed day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.